want to start with a biological fact. Right now, as you're listening to my voice, microscopic clusters of cancer cells are forming inside your body. Now, that is not a scare tactic, that's just basic human biology. It's happening in my body and it's happening in yours. It's a constant, totally normal process. And here's the deal. These tiny tumors are completely harmless as long as they stay microscopic. I'll say that again. Cancer cannot kill you while it stays microscopic. But, and this is the crucial part, the moment one of those tumors manages to connect to a blood vessel, just one, it can explode in size, growing up to 16,000 times larger in just 2 weeks. So that brings us to the real question we need to be asking. It's not if you have these cells. It's whether you're giving your body what it needs to win the fight. You see, your body is brilliantly designed to hunt down and destroy these clusters. And I can tell you, after 15 years on the front lines of patient care, many of the most powerful tools for that job are found in your food. Okay, let's get into it. Your body has 3 incredible built-in defense systems. There's anti-angiogenesis, which we'll talk about, there's DNA repair, and then there's your immune system, which is massively influenced by the trillions of bacteria in your gut, your microbiome. The bottom line is, the food you eat either fuels these systems or it starves them. So in this explainer, we're going to break down those 3 systems. We'll look at how to cut off a tumor's lifeline, how your cells can literally fix their own broken DNA, and how to turn your gut bacteria into an army of cancer-fighting guardians. All right. First up, and this one is huge, we need to talk about controlling a tumor's blood supply. The technical term for this is angiogenesis, and it's a real game changer. You know, people wonder about this all the time. What's the tipping point? The answer is shockingly simple. It's blood vessels. A tumor that doesn't have its own blood supply can't grow any bigger than the tip of a ballpoint pen. It can just sit there for years, totally harmless. See, your body is really smart about where and when it grows new blood vessels. But cancer cells are sneaky. They start pumping out a protein called VEGF, that's vascular endothelial growth factor, which basically sends out a fake 911 call, tricking your body into building a brand new blood vessel pipeline right to the tumor's front door. And this is where things get dangerous fast. Research out of Harvard is just staggering on this. Once that pipeline is built, a tumor the size of a pinpoint can blow up to the size of a grape in only 2 weeks. That's the 16,000-fold increase. That's the switch that flips from harmless to life-threatening. But here is the empowering part. This is where you get to fight back. Certain foods contain natural compounds that can block that VEGF signal, basically cutting the communication lines. Get this. When scientists took the active compound in green tea, EGCG, and tested it using the exact same lab methods they use for chemotherapy drugs, it performed comparably. And it's not just green tea. We've identified over 100 foods with these anti-angiogenic powers. Okay, but listen, you can't just toss a tea bag in boiling water and expect to get these benefits. How you make it matters. You want to heat the water until it's steaming, about 175 degrees, but not boiling, because boiling actually destroys the good stuff. Let it steep for 3 to 5 minutes. Pro tip, a squeeze of lemon juice can boost your body's absorption of these compounds by 6 times. And here's a critical warning. Do not add dairy milk. The proteins in milk bind to the active compounds and make them completely useless. So, starving tumors is strategy number 1. But what if we could get ahead of the problem, like way ahead? That brings us to our second defense system, which is all about fixing the problem at the source, damaged DNA. Think about what your DNA goes through every single day. Hits from toxins in the environment, from processed foods, even from the sun. Your cells have this amazing little repair crew working around the clock, but that crew needs the right tools for the job. And it turns out, those tools are waiting for you in the produce aisle. The proof on this is it's remarkable. Researchers at the University of Oslo had a group of adults eat just 1 kiwi a day. The result? A 60% reduction in DNA damage. But get this, another group ate 3 kiwis a day. They didn't just prevent new damage, their cells showed a 60% improvement in their ability to repair old existing damage. Think about that for a second. That's not just prevention, that's actively turning back the clock. Now I know what you're thinking. Can I just pop a vitamin C pill? And the answer is no. A pill gives you one thing. A kiwi gives you vitamin C plus dozens of other compounds, polyphenols, flavonoids that all work together. It's like the difference between a single violin and a full symphony orchestra. The whole food is just so much more powerful. All right, a quick but very important medical warning here. Kiwis are high in something called oxalates. So if you have a history of kidney stones, you absolutely must talk to your doctor before you start adding a bunch of kiwis to your diet every day. Now for our third defense system, and this one is on the absolute cutting edge of cancer research. We're talking about your microbiome, the trillions of tiny guardians living inside your gut. This connection is maybe the most mind-blowing of all. Immunotherapy is a revolutionary cancer treatment. For some patients, it's a miracle. For others, it does absolutely nothing. And we're now discovering that the difference maker can be a single type of bacteria in your gut. Researchers studied 200 patients, and they found the hero of the story is a little guy called Akkermansia muciniphila. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful. Here's what they found. Patients who had lots of Akkermansia in their gut, they responded beautifully to the treatment. Those with low levels didn't. This one bacteria seems to prime your immune system, getting it ready to fight. So the obvious question is, how do we support this crucial ally? Well, you don't eat the bacteria. You feed the ones you already have. Pomegranates are amazing for this. They contain these compounds that your Akkermansia bacteria eat and turn into a powerful anti-inflammatory molecule. You're basically giving them the raw materials to build a superpower. Walnuts, raspberries, and cranberries are also great food for them. Two quick warnings here. First, if you're going with pomegranate juice, read the label. Make sure it has no added sugar. You don't want to cancel out the benefits. Second, and this is so important, antibiotics can be like a carpet bomb to your gut, wiping out your Akkermansia. So after any course of antibiotics, it is urgent that you focus on rebuilding that population with these foods. Look, the science is one thing, but seeing it in a real person is another. Let me tell you about Margaret. She's 58, from Portland, with a tough family history of cancer. She committed to adding these foods every single day. And her story is just a powerful example. Within 6 weeks, her inflammatory markers in her blood work dropped, and her own oncologist saw a measurable improvement in her immune cell counts. It's the consistency, day in and day out, that gets results. So, let's pull all of this together into a practical game plan. Think of this as your cancer-fighting grocery list. We've got green tea to help starve tumors, kiwi for DNA repair, pomegranate to feed your gut guardians. These are the foods, the systems they support, and the intake levels that the research points to. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. Now, I need to pause and be absolutely 100% clear because this is the most important thing I'll say. These foods are a way to support your body's amazing natural defenses. They are not a cure for cancer. They do not and they must not ever replace medical treatment from a doctor. If you have a cancer diagnosis, please talk to your oncologist before making any big changes to your diet. We've covered a lot of ground, but it really boils down to this: 7 foods, 3 defense mechanisms that they fuel, and a decision. A decision to start actively supporting your body's natural defenses today or to wait for a diagnosis to force you to take action. The choice, as always, is yours. You know, we tend to think of cancer as something that just happens to us, right? A bolt from the blue. But what if the everyday choices we make are actually creating the perfect environment for it to grow? Today, we're not digging into some super rare genetic thing. Nope. We're talking about something way more common. Something that might be on your plate right now. We're talking about blood sugar. Okay, so let me ask you something right off the bat. Think about your breakfast this morning. Maybe it was a bowl of oatmeal, a glass of orange juice, a banana you grabbed on the way out the door. We've been told these are healthy choices. But what if they're quietly fueling a problem we're all desperately trying to avoid? Let's dive into the science and see how we can take back control. All right, so first things first, we kind of have to rewire how we think about cancer. For a long, long time, the story we've been told is that cancer is all about genetics, just a case of bad luck. But that story is missing a huge piece of the puzzle. And this is where that reframing really clicks into place. See, cancer cells aren't just these passive little things that made a mistake. They are active, aggressive predators inside your body, competing for resources. And their absolute favorite food, the thing they are literally wired to devour at insane rates, is glucose. It's sugar. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but this is not some fringe idea. Not at all. This is something called the Warburg effect, and it's based on a discovery that won a Nobel Prize way back in 1931. A scientist named Otto Warburg figured out that cancer cells are, well, they're wildly inefficient. They don't burn sugar cleanly like our healthy cells do. Instead, they ferment it. And that process requires a massive amount of sugar to fuel their crazy growth. And right there, that reveals cancer's biggest weakness, its addiction to sugar. Okay, so if sugar is the fuel, then what's the delivery truck? How does it get to the cancer cells? Well, it turns out our own body's hormones are playing a key part. Let's really dig into this powerful connection between sugar and a hormone you've definitely heard of, insulin. And for so many of us, this turns into a really vicious cycle, and we don't even know we're in it. It starts like this. You eat something with refined carbs or sugar, right? Your blood sugar shoots up. In response, your pancreas pumps out a bunch of insulin to deal with it. But if this happens over and over, your cells kind of get tired of hearing that signal. They become resistant. So what does the pancreas do? It has to shout even louder, releasing more and more insulin, until your levels are just stuck on high all the time. Now, when most people hear high insulin, their mind immediately jumps to diabetes. And that's true, but it's not the whole story. This quote here really nails it. Chronically high insulin isn't just a diabetes problem. It is a massive cancer problem. And here's exactly why. See, insulin does more than just manage sugar. It's a powerful growth signal. It literally tells cells to grow and divide. And what's more, it ramps up the production of another heavy hitter, IGF-1, which stands for insulin-like growth factor 1. So when insulin is high, IGF-1 is high. And IGF-1, well, it's one of the most potent drivers of tumor growth that scientists have ever found. And we're not talking about some small, obscure study here. This is a huge meta-analysis looking at over 30,000 patients published in Lancet Oncology, one of the best medical journals on the planet. The evidence is just overwhelming. The higher your IGF-1 levels, the higher your risk for some of the most common cancers out there. Okay, and here's where it all clicks together. This is the big aha moment. Those two growth hormones, insulin and IGF-1, they directly crank up the production of something called VEGF. And VEGF is the exact protein that tumors use to build their own private blood supply. So high blood sugar doesn't just feed the cancer cells, it literally helps them build the roads and highways they need to get bigger and spread. Okay, let's pull all this science out of the lab and see what it actually looks like in real life. I want to tell you about a patient we'll call Robert, because his story shines a light on a trap that so many of us fall into. So Robert was 61, a colorectal cancer survivor, and he was doing everything he was told was right, or at least he thought he was. He'd given up red meat, he was exercising, but the problem was he was eating all these foods that the marketing world had stamped as healthy, while underneath the surface, they were creating the perfect storm for his cancer to come back. Just look at this. On the left, that was his before. For breakfast, orange juice, granola, and a banana. That's a huge sugar bomb first thing in the morning. Then for lunch, a turkey sandwich on whole wheat with pretzels. Again, more fast-acting carbs. Even his snacks, like dried mango, were just concentrated sugar. Now look at the right. That's the after. He swapped those sugar bombs for things like eggs, healthy fats, and fiber. And the result? His blood sugar became smooth and controlled. He was creating a hostile environment for cancer. Okay, so how do you actually do this for yourself? The good news is this isn't about some crazy restrictive diet. It's really about making smart, strategic swaps. So let's lay out some key principles for your own anti-cancer food plan. All right, step 1 is learning to spot the bad guys, the hidden sugar drivers. Things like white bread, white rice, pasta, cereal. They break down so fast in your body that they might as well be pure sugar. The trick is to swap them for the stuff on the right, these low glycemic powerhouses. We're talking non-starchy vegetables, lentils, beans, things that give you slow, steady energy and keep your blood sugar nice and stable. So here's a super simple blueprint for how to build your plate. First, make non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, spinach, cauliflower, the absolute foundation of every meal. Then add a good quality protein source. Make things like chickpeas and black beans your main source of carbs, and top it all off with healthy fats like olive oil and avocado. A plate that looks like this, it creates a nearly flat glucose curve. No spike, no big insulin rush, and no growth signals being sent to cancer cells. Okay, now beyond what's on your plate, I have got two incredibly simple tools you can keep right in your kitchen that give you an extra edge in this fight. Check this out. Just 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar in a glass of water before you eat can slash the glucose spike from that meal by up to 34%. It actually slows down the enzymes that break down carbs. It's such a simple, powerful trick. And here's the other one. Just half a teaspoon of cinnamon a day. Now make sure it's Ceylon cinnamon, not the regular cassia kind you find everywhere. Ceylon cinnamon can directly help your cells become more sensitive to insulin again. That means your pancreas doesn't have to work so hard and your insulin levels stay nice and low. All right, let's tie all of this together now, because controlling your blood sugar is about so much more than just starving cancer cells. It's about fundamentally changing your entire internal environment. Okay, so here's the whole chain reaction. It goes like this. High blood sugar creates these nasty compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs for short. These AGEs then drive inflammation all throughout your body. That chronic inflammation creates what's called oxidative stress. You can think of it like rust on your cells. And that rust directly speeds up DNA damage, which is the very first spark that starts a cancer. So you see, controlling your blood sugar isn't just playing defense, it's playing offense. You're stopping the damage before it can even start. So really, you should think of this as fighting a war on 2 fronts. On one front, you're starving the fuel supply. You're controlling blood sugar and insulin to deny cancer cells their food and their growth signals. And on the second front, you're blocking their blood supply with anti-angiogenic foods. These 2 strategies, they work hand in hand, creating these powerful overlapping layers of defense. So what can you actually do starting tomorrow morning? Here's your daily protocol. It's simple. 1. Build your meals around protein and vegetables. 2. Get rid of all liquid sugar. I'm talking juice, soda, all of it. 3. Use those 2 kitchen tools, vinegar and cinnamon. 4. Eat your fruit whole, never juiced. And 5. Try to eat all your food in an 8 to 10 hour window. It's been proven to lower insulin. Look, the bottom line is this. The foods that send your blood sugar on a roller coaster are creating the exact biological environment that cancer loves. But this isn't about being scared. It's about being empowered, because the decision to change that environment, to build a body where cancer just can't thrive, that decision starts with your very next meal. And that power, it's completely in your control.
All right, today we're putting the final piece of the puzzle in place for how our bodies can defend against cancer. We've already talked about cutting off its blood supply, and we've talked about starving it of its favorite fuel. But there's this hidden condition, this environment that cancer absolutely loves and needs to survive, and that's chronic inflammation. The crazy part, the foods in your kitchen right now are either turning that environment on or switching it off.
So let me just start with this question. What if you could literally find the switch for cancer's favorite environment and just turn it off? Well, the amazing thing is, you can. You really do have that switch. And by the time we're done here, you're going to know exactly where it is and, more importantly, how to flip it for good.
Okay, so first things first, we have to understand what this environment actually is. And to do that, we need to get one thing crystal clear. Inflammation, by itself, is not the bad guy. Not at all. In fact, it's one of your body's most incredible defense systems. The real problem starts when that system goes completely haywire. And this really shows you the 2 different faces of inflammation.
On the left, you've got acute inflammation. You can think of this as the hero. It's like the firefighter. You get a cut, and this powerful, localized response rushes in, puts out the fire, heals the damage, and then it goes home. Job done. But on the right, that's the villain, chronic inflammation. This is like a slow, silent leak that spreads throughout your whole house. It's long-term, low-grade, and it serves no purpose. It's just a malfunction, and its only outcome is damage. So what is the actual switch? I mean, what's happening on a biological level that lets this chronic inflammation create such a dangerous playground for cancer? Let's get right into the nuts and bolts. So check this out. Here's how it all goes down. It starts with step 1. These inflammatory signals, these little messengers, start floating around all over your body. Then, in step 2, they find and flip a master genetic switch inside your cells. It's called NFKB. And this is the critical moment in step 3. As soon as that switch is flipped, it blocks your body's own self-destruct program for damaged cells. You know, that safety system called apoptosis? It gets shut down. And the result? You see it in step 4. Damaged, precancerous cells that should have been eliminated are now given a free pass to survive, to divide, and to get even more dangerous. And listen, this isn't some minor issue. Just look at these numbers. Research shows that chronic inflammation is a contributing factor in 25% of all cancer cases on the entire planet. Let that sink in. 1 out of every 4 cases. It's one of the single biggest drivers of cancer that we know of. Okay, I want to pull this out of the world of theory and make it totally real for you. Let me tell you about a patient we'll call Daniel. On the outside, he looked perfectly fine, but his diet, it was quietly stoking an internal fire. Now, take a look at what Daniel was eating. I mean, it probably looks pretty normal to a lot of us, right? A bagel, a wrap for lunch, but then you look closer at the actual inflammatory inputs. We've got refined grains, processed meats, and the big one, industrial seed oils hidden everywhere. In his salad dressing, his crackers, even what his chicken was cooked in. Every single meal was basically another log on the fire of his chronic inflammation. So, we did a blood test to measure his C-reactive protein, which is a key marker for inflammation in the body. His number came back at 4.8. That is way into the high-risk zone. But this is the incredible part. We put him on a new plan using the exact strategies I'm about to show you and retested him just 12 weeks later. Look at that chart. His number plummeted all the way down to 0.9, squarely in the low-risk range. This shows you just how fast, how powerfully we can take back control of that inflammation switch. All right, so this is the part you've been waiting for. Let's get right into the toolkit. How can you get these same kinds of results? It all comes down to making very specific, very targeted choices with your food to turn that inflammation dial way, way down. Okay, the single biggest driver of dietary inflammation in our modern world is right here on this chart. It's the totally out-of-whack ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fats. For most of human history, that ratio is pretty balanced, maybe around 4-to-1. But now, because of all the industrial seed oils pumped into processed foods, the modern diet is sitting at a staggering 20-to-1. We are just flooding our bodies with pro-inflammatory omega-6s and starving them of the anti-inflammatory omega-3s they desperately need. So here's our first action plan, and it's all about fixing that ratio. You got to do 2 things at the same time. First, you reduce the bad stuff. You cut out those industrial seed oils. That's your soybean, corn, sunflower oils. Then, you actively increase the good stuff. Get fatty fish like salmon or sardines in your diet, grab a handful of walnuts for a snack, and for your everyday cooking oil, switch to extra virgin olive oil. It has a special compound called oleocanthal that actually works on the same anti-inflammatory pathways as ibuprofen. How cool is that? Now for one of my absolute favorite food facts. Look at this number, 2,000%. That is how much more curcumin, that's the powerful anti-inflammatory compound in turmeric, your body can absorb when you just add a little pinch of black pepper. It's a 20-fold increase. If you don't add the pepper, most of that amazing goodness just passes right through your system without doing its job.
And here's a super simple, super powerful daily habit. Think of it like a simple equation. You take green tea, which we already know is great for blocking angiogenesis, and you combine it with fresh ginger, which is a fantastic anti-inflammatory. What do you get? A daily defense drink that hits two of cancer's most critical weak spots at the exact same time.
So let's bring it all home. Part 2 of the action plan. Spice up your meals every day with that turmeric and black pepper combo. Make that ginger and green tea your go-to drink. Pile on the dark leafy greens like spinach and kale to get magnesium, which is so important for calming inflammation. And finally, let's talk about a huge mistake people make: habitual alcohol. I know some people think a glass of red wine is healthy, but the truth is, the overall effect of alcohol on the body is directly pro-inflammatory. It basically cancels out all your other hard work.
Okay, so it's time to zoom out, because what we've talked about today, extinguishing inflammation, it's not just a standalone trick. It's a crucial part of a much bigger, fully integrated system of defense.
And here it is. This is the complete three-part framework. Number 1, we block angiogenesis to cut off a tumor's lifeline. Number 2, we control blood sugar to starve cancer of the fuel it needs to grow. And number 3, our focus today, we extinguish chronic inflammation to take away the very soil that cancer needs to plant its roots and thrive.
And I want to leave you with this idea because it really says everything. These 3 systems are not independent strategies. They are one integrated cancer defense framework. And every food choice you make every day is either reinforcing it or dismantling it. It's all connected.
So you see, the power to build up this incredible defense system is already yours. It's in your grocery store, it's in your kitchen, it's on your fork. It all comes down to the choices you make with your very next meal. So the only question left is, which direction are you going to choose?